This is the coolest show brought to you by Hip Hop Caucuses. Think 100%.
It's the coolest show you know, keep the culture connected. It's the coolest show you know, in your ear, yeah, respected. Expert level information, entertainment, education. Rev Yearwood got you covered as you hit your destination. Climate rules everything around me. Cream. For those who lost focus, close your eyes and just dream. Open your third eye, now the world is your off. Coolest show you know, it's the Hip Hop Caucus.
We are excited about this conversation here. We are having an important conversation about the need to stop petrochemicals, and we've been dealing with three regions. One region was in Louisiana, one region was in Texas, and the other region is the Ohio River Valley. And so I'm so excited to have with me Kathy Ferguson, and she is a community advocate from the unincorporated district of Institute, West Virginia, championing social, environmental, economic, and restorative justice causes. Kathy has for over 25 years been doing this work at a very high level, and she has 25 years of experience working in social services within the criminal justice system. Today, she works as a community activist, demonstrating a clear commitment to helping those who are in most need and giving voice to those who are disenfranchised. An agent for change, Ms. Ferguson is a believer in social justice and equality for all and dedicates both her professional and personal time towards this end. So my sister Kathy, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking.
Yeah, it's good to have you. But so I read a little bit of your bio, but for, I know it's a lot more than just the bio. And so I'm gonna ask you this question. Who is Kathy Ferguson?
Oh my gracious. Listen, to be honest with you, that bio it pretty much sums it up. I am definitely an altruistic person who has a passion for the people. A child of, a father that was from Appalachia and lived in an independent, thriving Black community, a mother who was from Harlem and was a member of the Black Panthers. And so those two forces converged, and I came out of that fire, that passion, and I'm just sort of, taking up where they left off, and really just trying to do, good work in the community. So, but I'm also a hip hop head, and
Okay.
I'm a child of that generation, and that's my jam, and that's my thing. And I'm on the LL side of things, but I'm old school. But at the end of the day, it's all good. We just keep moving forward and loving the culture.
No, definitely. And LL is he's old school and he's new school, and
Yeah.
and at the same time. And
That's right.
depending if you like the rapping or the acting.
That's right. That's right. So you transition, you flow with those things, and so have I in my life and career. So.
Let's talk a little bit about West Virginia, actually. So, is your family from there? Did you move to West Virginia? Let's talk about that community.
Yeah, so my father is originally from West Virginia. He came from a family, the Ferguson family, that owned a farm down that way. And three brothers actually, and they all went to the military and did really great things. But my grandfather was actually the dean and the first registrar at West Virginia State University, which is now West Virginia State University. It used to be West Virginia Colored Institute, and it's at HBCU. And a lot of people forget about the school and the town of Institute because it is unincorporated. But because of desegregation, that is one of the schools that actually ended up becoming, and is currently like 80%, if not more, Caucasian. And so it's sort of flipped, but we stay tethered to our roots and to that experience. And so, I lived in grew up in that thriving community. But again, I was born in New York. That's where my mother was. My father went there, and they met and fell in love. And just a very progressive set of parents. Which was a little interesting because West Virginia it's not known for being progressive. And certainly in this political climate, we see a lot of things with our senator's mansion in Capitol and the movements that they're making, they're really kind of showing West Virginia to be a different type of space for people that are progressive and people that are into reform. So it's been a little bit challenging, a lot of bit challenging. But we're making do and trying to push through the best way that we can. It's an experience though. Black Appalachia is real. And it's not
No,
just
there it is. Black Appalachia is real. And I also want to say this, and for folks who don't know, our liberation and a good bit of our story is tied to West Virginia.
yeah.
If you are someone who understands liberation of Black people, you cannot tell that story without telling the story of John Brown. There
Yeah.
is no way you can go forward without giving that story about that white man, that white man's family who fought and died to end slavery. And I believe actually a lot of folks after that, that was the beginnings of the Civil War and many other things. And so that spirit of John Brown has to run through West Virginia some way.
Oh, of course it does. Of course it does. And it also started with the labor movement.
Mm.
We had Black coal miners that were on the front line. It was the first time that Blacks and whites actually came together to work for labor rights. And, they called them the Red Scarves, and they had that big battle there in West Virginia. So that really was the kickoff for labor rights around the country. So it started in West Virginia. And just, shout out to West Virginia in terms of our other Black leaders. Folks don't realize and don't often remember that George Washington Carver has roots in West Virginia. Booker T. Washington came out of West Virginia. Leon Sullivan, that was responsible for, the Sullivan principles that ended apartheid, came out of West Virginia.
Mm.
So we've got some heavy hitters that come out of our area. And of course, you all know Hidden Figures, Katherine Johnson, the mathematician out of West Virginia. So don't sleep on West Virginia.
Yeah, no, don't sleep
We
on that
coming with
history.
it. We've got
Yeah.
folks that've been doing this kind of stuff for years. And anyway, so.
Yeah, no, that history is. I mean, even the Niagara movement. From the beginnings of the NAACP, their first stop was obviously over in Canada, but the next stop was actually West Virginia.
Yeah.
So the people don't know there's a lot of history there. So with all that being said, what do you work on, and how do you show up in this work?
Well, because I did grow up there, my first sort of foray into this environmental justice movement actually started because of methyl isocyanate, and people commonly know that as MIC. And that was a particular chemical that killed thousands of people over in Bhopal, India, people of color across, the waters. And so what we did not realize is that there were only two places that this chemical was being made. It was being made in Bhopal, India, and in Little O Institute, West Virginia.
Wow.
And so when we found out about that, my father, started an organization called People Concerned About MIC. And I think at the time I was probably about 15 years old, maybe 14, about to turn 15. And, it was one of those things where, we had to, when we would, smell certain things in the community, releases or hear sounds, we would always call the chemical companies. And that was just what we did. And so that was sort of my initiation into sort of pushing back against the establishment and doing that type of thing. So that's, sort of informed my life going forward. And of course, and I'll age myself again, going to the University of Maryland, when I left, the first thing I did was start, helping build shanties and protesting against apartheid. So that's how I showed up for that work initially, and really recognizing that, people that are Black and brown are often on the fence line when it comes to chemical pollutants of every variety, and really realizing that we need to sort of reverse that trend.
Yeah, speak more to that. I mean, speak more to what is the specific challenge you face right now, obviously in your community. Speak why is it urgent, and also, what does it look and feel like, um, when you're dealing with those challenges right now to overcome them.
I will tell you, it can be stressful at times. Of course, it can be frustrating because I would say, particularly for West Virginia, you have sort of a duality, and it doesn't really, make much sense. You've got, on the one hand, you've got a state and you've got leadership that wants to bolster the place as this great, mecca for outdoor recreation. Come here, whitewater raft, bungee jump, do all these great adventures. But at the same time, they are beholden to chemical companies, to coal industries that actually deplete the land of its resources and contaminate the waters, the airs, the land, just by their products that they're producing. So, when you're living there and you understand, that this is happening, it gets very, very frustrating, because your cries and your activism very often falls on deaf ears. So that's been one of the biggest challenges, is really trying to shift the narrative. But we have folks that are just, they are in bed with those industries. They're getting kickbacks. They're getting all sorts of benefits because of that alignment. But meanwhile, the people are suffering. West Virginia has the poorest health outcomes in the country, as a direct result of the things that we breathe and we drink. We've had a water crisis as of recent. We've had chemical explosions. We've had, coal mines, implode. And so there's a lot of, immediate catastrophic things that have happened to people, but the long-term effects, the lingering effects, are the things that we have really been trying to highlight and bring attention to. And it's also very difficult because, while we know that this is the case, we also understand that, these entities provide jobs. And when you have an economically depressed area such as, West Virginia, and it hasn't developed beyond those particular industries, people, get very afraid when you're talking about shifting the culture or changing industries and where their jobs going to go. We saw that, sort of attack against Obama. He's against coal and Hillary Clinton. But the bottom line is that for our country's greater good, for our children's greater good and their children's children, we have to start cleaning up the environment little by little. And that, of course, deals with carbon emissions and climate justice, but it also includes the other environmental pieces like those chemicals and coal pollutants, just for
Uh,
air quality.
yeah, and as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about, I want you to kind of speak to this in this aspect, because people who are hearing this, sometimes they come from communities where they don't understand. Obviously, they're not coming from West Virginia. They're not coming from Black Appalachia. They're not coming from our communities where they just think, well, why don't you just leave?
Oh yeah.
Why are you sticking around for that? So speak to how complex this is in your community conversation when you're sitting around in there in West Virginia, but also who do you want to hear this?
Yeah, well, I really want the world to hear this. And I will just say that, it's a very interesting experience because I understand, that when folks are having to deal with economic strife, and low wealth and those type of issues, it's hard to sort of prioritize things that you hear like methyl isocyanate or ethylene oxide. Those things seem very, very heady, very vast, and beyond a person's basic sort of comprehension. They just sound that way, and to read it is almost impossible, for most people. So people are often disconnected from that issue. And I work with an organization, I shouldn't say work. I am a part of a community panel that is sort of
Mm,
designed to bring the chemical companies and the communities together. And I do believe that they need to do better about making sure that information about what's being manufactured in areas gets directly into the hands of people. I don't care if you knock on their doors and give them a flyer or you just have some conversations. It's hard, especially with COVID, it's hard to get people out for town halls. But, again, when people are concerned about food, water, clothing, shelter, whether their children are going to be able to get to school safely and that type of thing. Things that don't seem to have an immediate impact, on you are sort of, just placed on the back burner. And so we're really having to kind of push through that and educate folks. Now, before, when Institute was sort of like the more poppin' place and, a booming area, certainly amongst the most educated folks in the state itself, because everybody, basically was in that community, had gone to the university or, even from high school, just feeding right into the university or the college at the time. But a lot of that generation has died off. We're at
mm,
our final, crossroads with that group. We've got one more generation that sort of kind of knows what has happened, knew the history of the school, understood the history of the community, and understood how we even got into bondage with chemical pollutants and that type of thing, which is another story. Now, I'm happy to share that with you if you want to ask about that. But they know the history.
I
They
am going to ask
understand.
about that.
Okay.
Definitely.
And so they understand that. But the newer generations, again, are not that cued in, to be quite honest with you. And certainly, I think that now is an opportune time, because I think the one thing about, the Black Lives Matters movement is that so many people have rallied around that issue. And you can't really speak about Black Lives Matter without looking at the totality of the life. And that's not just police brutality and that reform movement, but it also has to do with our environmental rights and our ability to live a quality of life and to have good health outcomes in the long term for ourselves and for our children and future generations.
So before I get to that bondage question and that aspect, I want to take a step back because you made a pause, which I think was actually beautiful. Actually, when you paused when you talk about work, and then you went to change the word from work to I'm in community. Why is it important to be to do that, to make sure that change is known,
I'm
and
so sorry.
also
Can you repeat that question? Because I didn't quite hear you.
yeah. So you paused as you were talking, and
Mhm.
you said that I'm not work, but
Right.
I'm in community. And when you were answering the question, and why is it important when you're to be one in community, and also I'll add to also be in solidarity.
Well, I mean, clearly, you need united voices to actually make a difference. It's very hard for a person to do something in a silo and to be that lone voice. If you recall, like, Horton Hears a Who, that just one lone voice. And people don't take you seriously, they're just, you might be, you know, labeled, that's the militant chick over there, or that's the, radical Jude over there, so you get labeled and you get targeted. People will call you crazy, or just whatever type of, name they can put on you to devalue what you're bringing to the table and to devalue what you're actually talking about, which is very important, or to diminish that cause. So it is very important that we get folks sort of to join forces in terms of this movement, to add to the complexity and to the fabric, of our experiences in that particular town, and really across Black towns across the state of West Virginia that are similar to ours, that are, being put on or being put upon by, manufacturers and, chemical companies and that type of thing. But, we have to work in solidarity. We cannot do this work alone. There's so much intersectionality, when it comes to our lives and how we fit and move in America in general. And if we don't figure out a way that we can all come together, most of our causes will be lost. And that's, borne out in the legislations that have been passing recently and things that are happening. So, people can come together and stand up against all sorts of different offenses, then we should be able to rally around this particular issue. Because at the end of the day, it very often is a matter of life and death.
Mm. Let me speak on that actually. As you're talking, um, folks should know that you are operating and organizing in a community that is at the crossroads, as you are fighting to stop these toxins, stop petrochemicals, stop all these things in your community. It is also clear to me that you are an amazing, powerful voice for justice, but you are also a Black woman of color woman in West Virginia. So, two things, just as I'm listening to you. Do you feel safe? And how do you maintain your self-care?
Oh yeah, I feel safe. Yeah, I have no qualms, no issues about that. We are a tight knit community. It's just that type of thing. There is no, in my opinion, any kind of safety concern at all. And to be honest with you, at the end of the day, we are certainly a minority in terms of our numbers, and so unfortunately, I don't think that people really see us as much of a threat. It's more so of a nuisance. But that's okay. I want people to take our, sort of our our small grouping to be, non-threatening, because that allows us to make more moves and to make more noise, and, to, work in the background, so to speak, to galvanize more people and come to really the world right now, and
Mhm.
trying to enlist some support and that type of thing. So, go ahead and, they can have those type of thoughts about us, but we are here. We're not going anywhere, at least hopefully. And you were trying to, engage and groom, future leaders around this particular issue. But yeah, I don't have any concerns with safety at all. And West Virginia's one
Listen,
of those places, where everybody has a gun, good, bad, or indifferent. I understand, but that's just the reality. So nobody's walking up on no porches. Nobody's gonna say, "Hey, get your hand out my pocket." It ain't gonna be none of that kind of stuff around around me. That's what I say. I'll
I
say.
absolutely love it. Absolutely. Oh my god,
Yeah.
that was a
So that was the
phenomenal
one
answer.
part. And I forget the other part that you're asking.
They don't even know what the
I'm
other
so
part is. So
surprised because I've never
that was so good right there. I like that. Anybody could put on these porches. Ain't
Yeah,
nobody.
I just never asked. No one's ever asked me about a safety issue. I just have never felt that way. But that's just it. I mean, the reality is that they're more likely to do and pass legislation that will be, more harmful than anything that they could do physically. So that's just the
Yeah.
reality, unfortunately. And we
Well,
try
let's
and
go
stop.
back. Well, let's go back to that movie, that chemical bondage then,
Okay.
actually. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about how when these companies have a business plan that means a death sentence for our communities, how does that kind of bondage take place?
Yeah, so this is so interesting. I happened to just by coincidence run into this chemist the other day, and we were having a conversation, and I asked him if he knew, about some certain chemicals. And ethylene oxide is sort of like the chemical du jour. That's like the new thing that everybody's talking about in emissions. And it's a carcinogen, and it's being emitted in many places in, significant amounts, and Institute happens to be one of those places. And so we're talking about this, and trying to make the story short, he disclosed to me that there had just been a conference, or some kind of celebration, I should say, up in Clendenin, West Virginia, which is
Mm,
probably about maybe about 25 miles, 30 miles away from where I am. Predominantly, well, pretty much exclusively, white area. But nonetheless, very rural. So they had the celebration, and the celebration was about the establishment of carbide. And carbide is one of Union Carbide, which is one of the main and one of the first chemical companies to take foot in the country, in United States. And it all started in Clendenin. And what he was telling me is that these people had come from New York and all these different places, converged upon Clendenin and said, there are all these natural resources and gas under, in the land of West Virginia. How can we exploit this, and where can we go? And they basically came up with a plan, went back to their respective states, did all this work, developed Union Carbide, and put it in West Virginia.
mm,
Now, at the same time that this was happening, or at or around the same time this was happening, or perhaps shortly thereafter, West Virginia then Colored Institute. I think it may have changed to West Virginia Collegiate Institute. I'm not sure where it was at that point, because I haven't been able to do the research, because I literally just had this conversation. But when that was happening, they had deeded land beside the university to the government for the war effort, and the production of rubber, because rubber was such demand for wheels and tires and all that to go overseas.
mm-hmm.
So they leased the land, I should say, not deeded. They leased the land to the government for that purpose. So once the war was over, they decided not to give the land back to the school. What they did was they then sold the grounds to Union Carbide. And
Mm,
so you got a HBCU there, all these Black kids going to school there. It's the only public four-year institution in that part of the state at the time. And that's where everybody went. That was the school. That was the Mecca. I mean, we were a well-established, part of the CIAA. We had teams that were, undefeated in many sports. So it was a very significant school, and everybody came there to teach, and everybody came there to learn. And so anyway, they gave this land away. And so the detrimental effects, of course, are going to affect those students. And then the nearby neighborhood, which was pretty much all the Black residents that came out of that school, people came there and settled or, taught and lived there. And so it was a very purposeful thing. Now, we used to have, people don't also realize that West Virginia State had an airfield. It was called Wirtz Airfield. And because of that airfield, we were actually one of the first flight programs, and we were the
Wow.
predecessor to Tuskegee. They moved that program to Tuskegee to build it there, closed down our airfield, put the chemical companies there, and that was the end of that. So since then, every few years, a company will go out and another one will come in. Now, we have had some successes. We were able to get Union Carbide to get the heck out of there, but then we got Bayer. Bayer had explosion. We were able to get them out of there, but we still have Dow. We still have all these other little startups. Now we have US Methanol. US Methanol moved there. The owners are from out of the country, as are most of the owners of these, companies. They brought over a tank and all this equipment from Brazil, where it had been defunct. They took it apart, barged it to West Virginia, put it back together, and consider us to be in a safe environment. I mean, this thing,
Mhm.
when it came, you could see rust all over it, but they've painted it, made it really pretty, and made it, a shining star for the state. And they feel like, oh, well, now we got 70 more jobs. But what's the value of 70 jobs when you have, thousands of people nearby who at any time can, if that blows up or something happens or there's a serious leak, you can be out of there like that. So it's been an issue, it's been a challenge, and something that we're really trying to fight. And one of the things, I've been trying to, push for, and I actually ran for office last in 2020, just to sort of kind of advance these issues, is I'm trying to get a moratorium. At what point can we just stop the transition of this land? Just let it be a brown land. Let us figure out something else that we can do with it. Can we make cars? Can we make Bayer aspirin? Do we have to make Roundup? Do we have to make these things that are really, harmful? And I feel like there are ways to do that. But again, our state is really just not, because if they can't get a kickback, there's no incentive for them. So we really have to either, vote people out and get some other people in, or just, trying to work on that legislative piece.
Wow. And that's important. Folks who are listening, people need to understand that demonstration. I always say this: demonstration is critical, but demonstration without legislation leads to frustration. So
Yeah.
you gotta. It's important for us to understand that. What strategy does your work offer to meet the challenges that you are describing? And then I guess, and then the other part of that question is, what are you willing to do to win?
Oh, listen, it's a hard fight. I've been fighting it for a long time, and to be honest with you, as I was saying, alluding to before, it's really about educating this next generation. And I do think that it's going to require, to be really successful, it's going to require, allies, white allies, to join this, movement. To be quite frank with you, we can't do it, on our own, and it's unfortunate that's the case, but it just can't. Or I should say, be much more difficult. So we've had some victories. We've won some lawsuits. We've taken people to court over all sorts of issues. We've gotten monies for this. If there's been explosion and somebody's house rocked and they had a cracked chimney, you could get some, money and damages and that type of thing. So, we've been doing sort of that paper, process with them in terms of trying to change the culture. And some of them just got tired of being sued and was like, all right, that's it, we're done. We were able to get them to stop making Sevin, which was a pesticide. So we've had those victories, but again, it sort of, needed our allies to sort of work with us, with regard to that. I think at this point, my belief is that we need to start being much more demonstrative. We need to
Mm,
actually be, more front and center. I certainly have, participated in protests, with labor movement or labor unions about the safety there and their hiring practices there. But to be quite honest with you, we have not yet done anything, in terms of, a big outward protest, uh, with banners and that type of thing to bring more attention to it. So Pam Nixon, who is, head of our, environmental, justice subcommittee with the NAACP, been talking to her and talks with her about let's try and take this to them, to their front door and really speak out about this issue. And I'm hoping that we'll get a lot of people to come out and that people, will respond the way that we would like them to. Yeah,
Oh,
but I
good.
think that's it. We're gonna have to take it to them. We're gonna have to take it to
So,
them.
I can surmise from that good trouble is on the way.
Yes, good trouble is indeed on the way. And in the meantime, we've been trying to plan virtual conferences to, equip and engage young people with the information. And really, again, trying to marry, white folks seem to resonate a lot with global warming and climate change, and sort of marrying the two issues and letting them know that they're not mutually exclusive. So yes, global warming will make stuff a lot hotter, will cause, greater tidal waves, it will cause, all sorts of flooding and different things of that nature. However, at the same time, the same things that are causing that are also adding to contaminants in our air, in our breathing capacities, and whether we have higher rates of asthma or not, or whether or not we have bronchitis or COPD, or certain types of cancers, or even have fertility issues and that type of thing. So I think it's important to sort of have a nexus between the two so that this movement can be stronger and more vocal. And so that's one of the things that I'm actually actively working on right now, is trying to figure out how we can make this more germane to more people and understand, because the reality is that, if you are the poor little Black town that's by the fence line and folks don't come there unless they're going to school or they're driving through to get to the next city, because there's unfortunately not a whole lot to stop there for. Quite honestly, we just, got a couple of traffic lights not too long ago, maybe about a decade ago. So it's a small area. People aren't invested. And if they live, 10 miles or so away and they don't feel like they're at risk of anything or any fallout, they're not compelled to get on board. So with this ethylene oxide, they're saying that the span of that, I think, is about 6 miles. So that brings in another city on either side. But again, a lot of those folks, still have family that work at those plants. And so they're torn between whether or not they want to stop the manufacture of these things and perhaps not be able to feed their families, or whether they die trying to do so. And it also speaks to, I think you said something earlier about, why don't you just leave? And, I will be honest with you, if those chemical companies were like, hey, we'll buy the whole town out, we'll give everybody, X amount of hundreds of thousands so that you can relocate and so forth, I think the majority of people might even consider that, to be quite honest with you. But we have been there. We've been there since 1891, at least. All Black town, pretty much, might be about 15% white at this point, but there are not a whole lot of other racial distinctions in terms of demographics there. So, we've been rooted there. We've been rooted there for a long time, but it does get tiring, and it does make you want to, think about leaving. And I was on a conference the other day, and they were talking about ethylene oxide and just the cavalier approach that the leadership had and the chemical companies had, and even our Department of Environmental Protection there in West Virginia had. Honestly, I was so aggrieved. I was just like, I just feel like packing my bags right now, because on the one hand, you want to fight the good fight, but on the other hand, it's like, are you willing to stay here and die to do it? And so that is the question. It does get to the point where, is this something that you can do remotely? Is this something that, you have to stay here, boots on the ground? And I've been there for, quite some time, but it just really made me think. I just gone for a gynecological, appointment. They're checking for, cervical cancer. And I was like, damn, what if it comes back, excuse my language, what if it comes back and that's the case? And maybe it's, related to the fact that I've been here for this period of time now, which has only been since about 2014. I moved back to kind of take care of my dad who had cancer. Like, what if that, what if I got that diagnosis? And I was like, is it worth, continuing to do the work? So I say yes, but at the same time, I'm working hard and feverishly to try and get an end to this nightmare so that, people can have a productive life. I can have a productive life and not have to sort of, always be worrying about that, always looking behind my back or around the corner for some kind of illness or disease to jump on me because I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to fight the good fight. So we need as many people in this issue to sort of resolve these complex, issues and circumstances that Black and brown people are dealing with all around the country. And it's sad, it's unfortunate, but you know, it's a challenge. I'm up for it, but I have to be honest with you. At a certain point, you do have to start thinking, you know, looking at it like, is there going to be any there? And so it makes you want to move quicker.
I asked you this question earlier about if you feel safe, and you definitely made it clear that ain't nobody run up on that porch.
That's right. That's true.
You made that very clear. But let me ask you this other question though, because about as you were talking, and I am originally from Louisiana, and there's a part of Louisiana that is called Cancer Alley, and I was talking with Dr. Beverly Wright, who was diagnosed with cancer. And there's many people now. We have cancer ministries, literally in
Wow.
Louisiana, because it's so many people who get cancer. And as you're talking about it, and definitely, obviously, sorry to hear about your father who passed because of cancer, but it's a part of our community, right? And we're dying. And we talked earlier about those in the environmental movement, and you know they sometimes have a far off forecast, 2030, 2050, but we've been dying, right? This ain't no, we're not waiting to 2030 to start dying. So
Right.
I guess for me, my question was early about safety, but do you feel supported? And what would you being supported in this fight look like?
To be quite honest with you, no, I don't feel particularly supported. I don't think our community feels particularly supported. Um, yeah, at all. And part of it is because we are so small and we are tiny. Um, we just feel very marginalized. I feel I can speak for the community in that regard. And very overlooked and just put on the periphery. And so that's an unfortunate thing, but it's a very real thing. And Pam, there are a few, and pretty much we're all sisters that are in this movement and working on this issue. And so even being Black women and working in that kind of isolation, it's tough because sometimes we don't even have the support of the brothers because again, some of them are working down at the plant and
Mm.
working at some of these places. And so it's push pull. It is push pull. I believe that, what I would like to see, and I think how people can support us is to start talking about it, to, speaking, even if you are in an area where this is necessarily happening, to have that as a part of a conversation. Did you know this was happening in West Virginia? Come join us, when we have a rally or you want to help put one together or what have you, please come out and do that. If you want to knock on doors, call and write letters to the companies, that type of thing. If we want to, do some types of boycotts and that type of thing, I think all those things are things that can help. But we do need more voices. We need more people in this movement to, really organize it and be a stronger force, to be quite frank with you.
Mm.
That's just my take. Yeah.
Mm. So you talked about safety. We talked about support. One of the last questions I have for you was in regards to the other S, which is success. What does success look like and feel like, and what's your hope and courage as you keep going to achieve that success?
Success for me looks like legislation
Mm.
that says these lands will no longer be earmarked for this type of production, chemical production. That would be a success for me. That they would have some type of plan to, have some type of alternate use for that property, or just to leave it alone, to, simply leave it alone. I'm just tired of seeing those fumes and mercury clouds and things of that, going off in the valley. And they're just being a true commitment to a beautiful state. And this is going to be the state of tourism, let's really make it a state of tourism, and let's sort of rid ourselves of these chemical companies and coal processing plants and that type of thing. Let's try and move into green spaces. So that would be helpful. I think, any kind of legislation, whether it's around, green economies and moratorium on the lands, that's a success for me.
Mm. So I just have two more questions, and
Sure.
one is actually for you for a soapbox. I want to give you the mic to just really say whatever you want to say to the people. We got a pretty good sized audience here, who tunes in to this conversation. So one is say whatever you want to say. This if I miss anything you think is important, but also in that, this is the first part of that question. How can people not only keep up with your work, how can they support you, and how can they take action?
Okay. Well, oh goodness gracious. I'm trying to think. Is there anything that I haven't said? I mean, I've sort of kind of felt like, I've tried to convey as much as I can in terms of sort of the historical aspect and how we came to be where we are. Um, and really, I think it's just about getting to where we need to be and how we can help folks all around the country. But for our, particular, cause, people can contact me. I'll give a telephone number and an email, and you can feel free to reach out and, connect with me, for some creative solutions and some ways to sort of advance this work. That's ideal for me. But really, I think it's just about trying to get the word out. I would love to speak to more audiences. If other people have podcasts, if other people have, newspapers and that type of thing, because, getting this word out, I think is very critical to the movement, and letting folks know that there is an issue. Certainly, again, our legislators have had a lot of issues. Y'all can call Joe Manchin. Y'all can call Joe Manchin. Y'all can call Joe Manchin. I know y'all been calling them for the People Act and all these other issues that are very important. But we've got to get him on board when it comes to these type of issues, to environmental justice, and really staying up, and even your own legislators, staying up in their faces about this thing, because at the end of the day, this is happening here, but it could happen anywhere at any time. All it takes is for somebody to write some legislation, or a city, a municipality, to change zoning in a law in an area, and you may have something crop up in your backyard. So, we've got to figure out how to, insulate ourselves from these type of things. And so, yeah, those are sort of my last words. This is very real. It's something that folks have been dealing with for quite some time. It's certainly unfair. It's unjust. And we need as much attention to this in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement as any other portion of that, because this is really about those Black and brown bodies. It's just a different sort of enemy in this particular case.
I know that's right. Give the website or email or numbers. Give that now.
Well, you can contact me via this is KFERDATA, K for data at yahoo.com. This is my personal thing. People concerned about MIC, and then it changed to people concerned about chemical safety, but that I was a part of. But the operating entity of that, they disbanded. I think they're coming back, but so I don't have an email for them directly right now for that entity. So you can just do it directly to kfordata@yahoo.com. You can also contact me at 304-926-9491. That's my direct line. Feel free to call, and you can text, you can leave a message, and I'll get back with you around that. But in the meantime, you can also go to Our Future West Virginia. It's another subsidiary, and they're starting an environmental justice component as well. So NAACP, they've got an environmental justice subcommittee. You can contact Pam Nixon at that. So if this is being recorded, I'll make sure that you have that stuff that you can put into the.
Yeah, no, we're gonna put all those links and everything so everybody listening can get to. And I'm gonna try to make it out there. Listen, I'm gonna tell you this, Kathy. I'm gonna try to get out there to West Virginia when y'all have something and whatever. And I'm gonna try to line it up so we can be out there. You can give me my little sign. I can do what we gotta do. Get a little good trouble. I like good trouble, Kathy.
I
You
love
know,
it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And we'll need lots of views. Come on
oh
now.
yeah, no, we got lots of me's around too, so we
Uh,
going. So this is my last question. Since we're gonna come out there and do that rally, I need to know what's gonna be on the playlist. So then now we go into the culture standpoint. So now you get to pick 5 songs or
oh,
artists if you don't want to pick a song. 5 songs or artists if you just want to do this. That's gonna be in our Good Trouble playlist. So what's gonna be while we waiting to rally? Then what's gonna be going through the boom box there? So there you go. You get to pick them.
oh, definitely gonna have Nas, and that's gonna
Okay.
be Whose World Is This? I think I could all be all Nas to be honest with you, but yeah, Whose World Is This? Um, I have a person in the room who's absolutely going crazy, because she's a hip hop head too. She's trying to tell me what to say. I'm like, that's one. Dag, I have a serious list, and I cannot even think of what I want. I can't believe I've drawn a blank. You caught me.
Well, you gonna put LL? Well, LL doesn't really. I
We
mean,
got no, nah, not LL. I love him
come on,
though. I'm going for some real resistance stuff here.
come
So
on now. Yeah, I'm
get
with you on
Black
that one. All
Thought.
right.
I'm gonna have to get some Roots Black Thought in there.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, we get some Public Enemy.
Definitely gotta have Public Enemy.
Dang, who else? I think you stumped me. I can't even believe it. I'm telling you, I could rattle this off all day long. And you caught me. You caught me. So let me see. I've got 3 artists. I can get 2 more. Let me think who I'm gonna do. Talib Kweli
Mm-hmm.
and dang.
Well,
I
now
gotta
I'm
have, I gotta have me a sister.
well, now I'm gonna force you now. You got 4 brothers. I'm gonna force you now. You gotta put a sister on there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think how hard I want to go with this. Shoot. Dang. I don't know. Well, I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to think if I want to go straight hip hop or I want to do R&B. But I'm gonna do I'm gonna throw one. I'm gonna throw a one from the far left. I'm gonna throw in Yo-Yo.
Oh, I like. Oh, I'm with
Don't
that.
try and play me out. Don't try and play me
Yeah. No, I like that. I might have went Rage. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I love me some Rage. I do love me some Rage.
Yeah, you know, the
But,
Afro Puffs, but definitely Yo-Yo is a good.
Yeah.
Yo-Yo is a great fit.
She don't get the credit she deserves. She don't get
No, she don't. No, she don't. Yes, you're right. She definitely don't get.
She really doesn't. But
She
listen,
deserves
I love them all. You know, I could pick all sorts of people, but yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with.
So definitely know when we have our little Good Trouble rally, the playlist gonna be super tight.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Yeah.
so.
Oh, I know so.
Yeah.
Miss Kathy Ferguson.
I'm excited.
Thank you so much for what you're doing and being a part of this conversation. And all power to the people.
Yeah, definitely that. Definitely that. I appreciate being here, and hopefully I'll see. It's gonna be in the spring. We're gonna make this happen.
Yeah. There it is.
And y'all come through. Everybody come through. Y'all ain't been to West Virginia, just come on through. It's something you gotta try it at least once.
God comes through. I've been. I love it. I love it. I tell you, and you gotta have to come that little John Brown spirit. You gotta come and everybody else who's come through there. We gotta bring all that energy.
Yeah.
Nah. Well, we got you.
You're not gonna find a whole lot. I'm gonna just tell you that right now. There's not a whole lot to do, but just if you want to just come and just chill and have some downtime, it's a place that you can definitely do that. But we'll get in some good trouble, and then we're just gonna chill.
I love it. Thank you so much. I love and there's a little and there's a choir there. I love it too because there's a choir who will make sure that we all tight. Thank you so much, my sister. Well,
listen, I appreciate you.
Nah, thank you. And yeah, that's Kathy Ferguson with us right here on The Coolest Show.
This is The Coolest Show, brought to you by Hip Hop Caucuses. Think 100%.
It's the coolest show, you know, keep the culture connected. It's the coolest show, you know, in your ear, yeah, respected. Expert level information, entertainment, education. Rev Yearwood got you covered as you hit your destination. Climate rules everything around me. Cream. For those who lost focus, close your eyes and just dream. Open your third eye, now the world is your off. Coolest show, you